So Ed.
Great. Now, hi everyone, how we doing?
Hello.
You alright? Brilliant. Thanks everyone so much for coming, and everyone viewing this on the live stream at home as well, to what is technically the first event from the Glasgow Coder Collective. We are, yes, love for the group. Excellent, brilliant. My name's Ed, and we have a lot of members here, including Tracy. The Glasgow Coder Collective is a social study group for initially for web development, but we have branched out from our roots through the free Code Camp online course and meetup, and become more platform agnostic. We welcome programmers of all or those skill levels, inclusive of any developer, programmer, hacker, mathematician or electrician. Generally any technology enthusiasts are welcome among our ranks, and we're delighted to be here at the BBC as well for one of our first events. BBC Scotland's broadcast graphics team have utilised open source projects to create a suite of apps for controlling real-time graphics engines. And now through an open source graphics pipeline they've called CasparCG, they're able to control HTML layers that used for presentation, hopefully replacing expensive proprietary engines as well. And we're really excited to hear more about that from our first speaker here as well, which is Ryan McKenna, from the senior developer here at the BBC.
Thank you. Cheers, Ed.
Give it up for Ryan.
Hello. Yeah, just to get some pleasantries out of the way. If anyone needs the toilet, it's round past the cafe area. Any emergencies, just head out the door. Try not trip up or anything. There's teas and coffees at the back. Make yourselves comfortable. We're going to talk for a bit, and then after we'll split up into 2 or 3 groups. We've got some of the Glasgow Coder Collectives here that have been working with a bit of Casper stuff themselves. Andy will be here to sit with a station on his work that we've done with BBC Alba, and we've got a little bit of a template that we've made for experimenting today as well. So welcome to BBC Scotland. We're here tonight to talk about CasparCG. Casper is becoming a very popular playout server for video, audio and graphics across the world. We'd like to talk about broadcast graphics and the projects that led us first into web development with this big chap, and then on to Casper. I'd like to talk about how Casper could provide opportunities for developers in the UK. So, who are we? If anybody thinks you need to be glamorous to work in TV, like the two faces there. I'm Ryan McKenna, I'm a senior designer and developer. I do a lot of augmented reality and different VisRT and Casper development here. And
I'm Andrew Leggett, and I'm a freelance developer, mainly working in web development, and been working with you for just over 4 years now, isn't it?
yeah,
4 long years.
So, TV, this is where we are. BBC Scotland produce 15,000 hours of TV and radio every year across all the BBC's channels. We also transmit 3 BBC channels directly from this building: BBC One Scotland, BBC Two Scotland and BBC Alba. At the end of the year we'll add another channel to the mix, a new channel for Scotland, broadcast from 7 o'clock till midnight. So our graphics team is expanding, the building itself is expanding with more staff, and we've got new TV shows to think about. So TV, we have many live broadcasts that rely completely on data. Our audience want the latest scores in football matches, the results of a tightly fought election, they want to know the weather in their area, and we try and keep the viewers entertained by telling them what other viewers are thinking on social media. This guy likes to know what people are thinking on social media as well. But enough about Zuckerberg. So what we try and do is make the data presentable for the audience to understand, and we use techniques like AR, as I mentioned, and touchscreens, so we can try and keep them entertained. But these are kind of additional features of TV graphics. The fundamental parts of TV graphics are these. You've got to have at least HD. Most people have got HD tellies now, so you want the graphics to be broadcasting that standard. They've got to be real time. That's because there can't be any rendering delay. If a director's shouting at you down talk back, tell me that graphic, show me that graphic, it needs to happen right there or then, or they'll be stressed out and they'll shout at you. So that's why we have to have a fill and a key. What a fill and key are: a fill is the solid of TV, and the key is what cuts out that solid shape. So when you see lower thirds at the bottom of the screen, the transparency comes from the key. 3D graphics are pretty popular now with AR and VR, as I've discussed, and scripting is how we can make these graphics interactive. How can we add something to them that, if you say a party code is LAB, how do you make the party colour go red, for example? It would be all through the code that does that. You've got to have video and broadcast graphics, of course, for backgrounds and for textures on top of these 3D shapes. And how do you control the graphics? We need software outside of the render engines to do so. The last item on there is for options for third-party integration. So now we have to have tracking solutions to get all this augmented reality to work. We also need plugins to make the graphics look better, and we need a way of creating bespoke interfaces to the graphics engines. So that's where we are in TV graphics at the moment. The leaders of TV graphics for quite some time have been VizRT. They're the established provider for render engines for many broadcasters around the world, and this is the kind of things that they do. VizArtist is the application in which we design these graphical scenes, and VizEngine is the server side for compositing the real-time graphics with the video. So BBC Scotland have got about 15 of these machines for our continuous programmes, Reporting Scotland, Sports Scene, Timeline and ANLA. I've used Artist extensively to make these type of scenes for elections with my colleague Matthew back there, and we've scripted a lot of scenes to make them interactive for things like touchscreens and so. So artists have, I've got some competitors now in the market. You've got people like Chiron, who are bigger in the States, Brainstorm, Zero Density, who have done quite nifty things with gaming engine integration, and you've got Avid and Ross there in the mix too. But TV graphics are expensive. Not everyone's making TV from their homes, so one of these graphics engines from any of these companies could cost in the tens of thousands. Some broadcasters are struggling to afford that, so it's an ongoing cost during hardware refresh cycles that not everyone can afford. That with the SLAs and support contracts that all go with that. There is some interesting developments. VizArtist has been released for people to download and use at their mercy, and it's free and it's just watermarked, so you can learn to use the software. Now, Viz have got two main products for controlling the graphics. This is the kind of thing that we use to control graphics on a running order style show, like say like a tea in the park or a transmit festival. We would use something like that. Or we can use these templates in software called Content Pilot to drive the graphics as well. Now, the only thing I felt is you make all these nice 3D graphics and then you get to drive them with something that looks like that. It looks like Bill Gates kind of launched it out in Windows 95 at some point. And from a design perspective, I'd like to make something a bit more friendly, user-friendly, a bit more UX involved, and a bit more professional looking. So I took the decision to create better bespoke applications to drive our graphics, and we wanted to create a foundation for making these apps that was modern, cost effective and offered a greater user experience. So that's when I started to look for a developer to work with. We went through a few different options and I found the big guy here, Doesn't like me calling him a big guy, but that's what he is. He told me he wasn't the right guy for the job when I first met him, because he didn't know anything about football, the first application that we had to make. But I said to him, look, I don't know anything about JavaScript, so that's
Nothing's changed.
agreement we've kept for the last 4 or 5 years, so it's brilliant. Our partnership's forced under that lack of knowledge, is that right?
Indeed,
And, we've tried to keep things consistent over the last 4 years, as I said. So, Andy came along with all these funky icons.
So like Ryan said, when he first sort of, the first thing I thought was his email was a spam email, because it was just like, hi, I'm Ryan from the BBC, and I thought, yeah, right, of course you're just emailing me, that's no problem. But I came in, and he was showing me the apps and things that have been written up to that point, and
That's my baby, by the way.
yeah, sorry. It is lovely, especially the kind of cornflower blue at the bottom. Very nice. But Ryan's main concern as they were refreshing everything, refreshing the look of the actual graphics and the control systems, was that under the stress of running a live program for 2 hours, an interface like this is quite full on, not easy to find things. So you wanted to have a system that was a lot easier, a lot less full of buttons and toggles and things like that. And I think you talked to other people and you talked about web. Web had never really been at the top of their mind. It was already been sort of .NET applications that were driving these things that were installed on each machine, and web development had never really come into that conversation. Yeah. Which is why I said I was the wrong person for the job. But just at that time, Node.js had just started to become, it's about 2 years in after that first thing. So this is 2014. And so I was thinking, okay, well, I'll do you a prototype and we'll see if Node.js can talk to VizRT. VizRT is, and most of these player engines have got a TCP server that you can just connect over a socket straight to the server and send it commands, which made it perfect for Node.js to start sending these commands across. So we did a small prototype, it seemed to work, and then he said, well, let's do it. We've got 2 months until the football season starts. I'm sure we'll be ready, let's go. And so I think I was almost sick on the first broadcast, just thinking, oh, is this all going to work? It seemed to work fine. We've obviously revisioned it since then, but yeah, I think that rapid development was thanks to the fact that the web development community has got so many lovely people that are sharing so many things, and creating so many lovely logos. All of the projects you're going to look at basically use this architecture. Okay, so they've got Node.js sitting at the heart of everything, with client machines mostly running Chrome because it's all internal to the BBC. So I was lucky to not have to do it for Firefox and IE and all those lovely other browsers. So they talk to the Node.js over WebSockets. Data comes in from various feeds. For the football, it comes in from Opta. For elections, it comes in from a company that provide all the election data to everyone. And Node talks over a TCP socket to the Viz engine, to sending it commands. And that's the basic structure of all the applications that we've done. It hasn't really changed much over 4 years from that. It's really the scale that's changed more than the actual stack that we've been using. So that all worked out quite nicely, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then FRS, Football Results Service, was our first foray.
Yeah, so if I can just show you a quick video of what sports scene's like on a Saturday afternoon.
Thanks, Chris. Let's head to Pataudry now. Aberdeen at home to Kilmarnock this afternoon, watched for us by Jonathan.
And what
So
a
we've got
here at
an
Pataudry
L shape here that kind of deals with the automated parts. We call this the tower, and then there's the video printer at the bottom, and you've also got a ticker with some different match details in there too. An operator's responsible for the middle section, bringing on a match report and sliding on things like the team information and stats during the match. But it's only one operator that does most of this work, with another journalist coming into the mix to add some headlines after the matches have been complete. So that's the kind of show that we're doing with FRS. It's very similar to Final Score in England. So,
I mean, this is just a little overview of the projects that we use, the open source projects we used to get this off the ground. So we didn't spend much time designing our own UI or anything like that. We just used flat out Bootstrap, didn't even change a single colour. Everyone liked the kind of Fisher-Price look of it, so we just kept that, even though it's quite gaudy to look at. And you'll see in a minute. But we just introducing different development practices as well, using GitHub for collaboration was the first time I think you'd done that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're doing the design stuff and me doing the coding.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, Node.js, introducing you to build systems and things like that, just to get that rapid development to try and get this thing done in a couple of months before football fans were knocking on the door saying, "Where's our show?" But again, data coming in from Opta, and also data coming in from the journalist that sits there. So it's a mixture of data all put together. Our first use of MongoDB as well as a database, whether that's a good or bad idea, I don't know, but we've stuck with it and it seems to have worked so far for us.
So just talking about the interface, this is how it looks on Chrome. We've got the home screen here. You can go to any of the sections, and we just have several different instances of Chrome dealing with all the elements that you've seen on that video. This is where we prepare the classified boards, and this is the main match report screen that the user would use. So we've got a little accordion style menu at the side to dive into each league and pull out matches. Buttons up the top to animate certain parts to the screen, and there's a preview that goes to the director. They can decide if they're happy with the offering that you've got. So it's all to hand and at the touch of a button. So after FRS, it went conveniently on to Rose Ed, which is for live sport matches. So I'll just quickly show you another video here. I'll just play a bit. But we've got operators who go to these matches. They'll be responsible for putting up the team lineups pre-match and all the match graphics. So that could be events such as yellow cards, substitutions, if a person scores a goal, reacting to these type of things. And Rose Ed takes all the events and stores them and presents them to the visitor in a respectable manner.
That was just a complete evolution of the football results system. So again, using the same open source projects, but this time just a single operator sending, reacting even faster to events that are happening. So the UI had to be as simple as possible. Again, because the director that's shouting you is now actually sitting right next to you, so there could actually be physical violence as well as just over talkback. So you think we're joking? We're not joking. I find it scary. The whole thing.
You get used to it, don't you, Matthew? Shaking back here. So we started off with football. That was the first plug-in as such. Then it moved on to rugby, a few Scottish minority sports, shinty hurling, and then we've followed these up with non-field based sports, indoor bowls and curling, which are remarkably similar in some way. This is the page that we use to prepare one of those formations, and it's kind of inspired by video games, Championship Manager, where you can just drag and drop players about, and it's the way you want to do it. It's the easiest way to reshape a formation. So it's again similar to FRS in terms of using Bootstrap to build interfaces pretty quick, and all the action that gets done is out on this main screen. So this is where we right click and say if a player's got a booking or they've scored a goal, etc. And these are the screens that we've recently added in the last couple of years to do bowls, which is quite a difficult sport to keep a track of, and curling. So after all this work with sport, I think we got a bit of recognition from the rest of the BBC, and we got the confidence really from the election team to create our own in-house graphics control system, which is called Manifesto. Everything's got to have a really funky name, hasn't it? I think that's probably the worst one we've ever gave, but there we go. So Manifesto, this is a bit of a diary of how it all came about and what's involved in an election.
So this has been used for 4 elections so far.
4 votes.
So the complete overnight shows for each of the elections. And we look a lot younger in this video. Wow.
Few late nights.
The campaign is over. The polls are about to close.
So that's the diary of Manifesto. So me, Andy and our colleague Matthew are pretty much behind the graphics and the control apps for all of that you've seen there. A bit of a different...
Yeah, I think the biggest difference
Build
here,
from-
again, same architecture, but this time a bigger scale. We had, before we were using the football system, there's 1 operator or 2 operators. This time there were a mixture of graphics operators, you know, that were more familiar with these kind of systems, and production staff who had a varying level of technical literacy. So again, the UI had to be really, really simple.
Mhm.
Also, we're talking about maybe 20 to 25 different operators doing different things. So people doing, you imagine back to the election where you had all the figures at the bottom. A lot of that was very much like the ticker on the football, kind of automated. But there were people doing lots of things on the ticker on the lower third. There were people doing the actual results. There were Matthew was actually driving the augmented reality graphics, the Big Ben you saw and things like that. So the system, the node system scaled really well. I used just clustering just to run it over multiple processes. Moved quite a lot of the processing onto the clients to actually, you know, take the load off the server. The last thing we wanted during the middle of an election is for the server just to get, you know, completely bottlenecked and go down, because they'd find me whimpering in a cupboard somewhere if that happened. But so yeah, but I was really surprised by how easy it was to kind of scale up and scale across. Use things like Redis to communicate across different processes and stuff. But essentially the same architecture, but just at a bigger scale.
So if we just look at the interface here, I think this is the first point where we've grabbed elements from the BBC news site. That map is just straight from there, and we're using the SVG constituency map there as a preview within the interface rather than using separate preview viz engines. So it's probably the first point we're thinking, well, that's quite clever using kind of web technologies to do the preview, and we're probably starting to get a few ideas about that. The interface is a bit darker because, as you can see, there's a lot of people in the studio using Manifesto, so you don't want their faces to be lit up on camera, so it's a bit darker there. These are the type of interfaces and pages that we use for the straps and the ticker. So it's all much alike and familiar for the users. So Manifesto is probably the biggest project we've done together, I would say. And it was a bit of light relief to get involved with social media after that. Magna is the system that we've made for dealing with tweets on the telly. Simple as that, really. Here's a little video explaining what Magna does.
I lift up my finger and I say, tweet, tweet, shush, shush, now, now, come, come. I don't need to linger when I say, tweet, tweet, shush, shush, now, now, come, come. When the baby screams and scatters my dreams, do I start to sing or hum? No, I lift up my finger and I say, tweet, tweet, shush, shush, now, now, come, come.
Come on. So that's Magna. It's pretty much a budget solution. You know, it's cheap and cheerful. This is the first point. You can see that the presentation layer, the output, is not Viz. We're just using web technologies at the end of that there. You could see the masonry plugin was used to put the tweets into a specific pattern, a brick-like pattern. So, do you want to talk once more about same kind of framework as Manifesto
again,
in some way, isn't it?
Getting very boring now. It's just the exact same thing, but we're just outputting onto a screen. So you saw during the election, Jackie Bird was standing in front of tweets as well. That was Magna doing that with just a different template, different bit of styling. But
I mean, can I just say that this web page that we're using for the presentation, all we done was hit F11 to make Magna full frame, and that was all we done. I mean, that's how budget it is. Cheap and cheerful. And
it works.
It works.
So everyone's happy. I mean, the only problem was the keying, wasn't it?
Yes, and that's probably when we start to think about Caspar. We'll go on to that in a second. So here's Magna. I'll just quickly go through a simple user interface. We can have a wall of tweets, a full frame, or lower third. There's Dave Benson Phillips, what a hero, eh? So as Andy said, the only way we could do lower thirds is to get the Vision mixing desk to actually crop a full frame image and layer it on top, which is not very professional or slick, but it's cheap and it works, as Andy said. So when we were finished Magna, we were reflecting on what we'd done, and as I said, we were getting to the point where we're thinking HTML, could that work on TV properly, broadcast quality? We're adding all these little SVG maps to the application as for previews. We're displaying tweets in nice little containers of HTML and CSS, and we just want to tap into the skills of the web development community from here.
I think what we found, I mean, obviously the budgets are tight and the timelines are tight, even tighter, but the preview there and with the map, that wasn't actually showing what was on the Viz output. The Viz output was a lot glitzier, and I had to kind of recreate these just to give people an idea about what was going to be coming up on the screen when they pressed the button. But users were like, well, that's, you know, straight away they were like, that's not what I'm seeing. Even though it's a representation of it, there was that kind of mismatch going on, and it was kind of like, well, you know, nothing we can do about it now, the election's tomorrow. So so it was kind of like, how can we not have to duplicate that effort of making them in the Viz engine and then also duplicating them as these HTML previews.
So yeah, you can see web graphics. If you ever want to see the power of web technologies in terms of design and 3D, then go to Chrome Experiments. You can see the fantastic work that people are doing there. That Polygon shredder is one of my favourites there. But it's almost as good rendering as your cinemas at points for some of these things, if you have a look. And it's starting to get our feeling for how can we push this onto broadcast. So this is where we're at the moment. We're thinking, right, we can do most of the things through web technologies for presentation of graphics, but we're kind of stuck at getting a fill and key. How do we cut out those things and put them on telly? And 3D graphics is a bit of a mix of, well, we could maybe do a bit of WebGL and let's think about that, but it's not quite there like you've seen with the AR that we do through Viz. So we went to a conference in Oslo. It looks like it was a beard and bald guy conference, but when my colleague Craig and Andy turned up, that guy was frightened to death. He thought he was trying to impersonate me. But this guy up in the top right here is Ollie Soprani, who is Caspar's dad in real life and in software. So we met up with these guys and we were talking about keeping an open mind for your graphic systems. Hello, like that. And we got to the point where we're kind of getting to a nice place with HTML graphics on TV, but we'd like to key it and stuff. And Ollie put up his hand and said, I know how we can solve that. And that's how we got involved with Caspar. It made complete sense. So Caspar was developed by SVT in 2006 for the Swedish elections. It was in a move to replace the existing proprietary graphics solution and the costs that come with them. The team had a bit of legal issues at the start because Caspar could be viewed as a threat to the business of some of these proprietary companies. But this all passed and Caspar was made open source in 2010. Since then it's been used by hundreds of broadcasters, and even Elon Musk has been using it to tell people when rockets are about to launch. That's SpaceX. Caspar was designed to be used for many different things. It does a little bit of everything. It plays video through FFmpeg, it can stream input or output, it can record to disk, and importantly for this talk, it can handle dynamic data through Flash templates and even HTML5. So here's a video from Jesper in Norway who uses Caspar for live events.
Hi, this is Jesper from Superfly TV. Tonight we're working with OB Team in Norway, producing a live show for national-wide TV. We are running CasparCG both for the main broadcast as well as the big screen on stage. We are doing lower thirds, full screen animations, running videos and audio cues as well. Everything runs from one single CasparCG and with a standard CasparCG client. For me as an operator, it is important to structure as much as I can ahead of the show. At the same time, I want to maintain flexibility during the show. My setup contains one X-Keys panel as well as B-Station from Visual Productions. This way, I can run everything with total control whatever happens.
Okay, so that was Jesper. You can see here the hardware details that you might need for Caspar. A machine can be built that costs around £2,000. That's right for TV. You would get 2 SDI outputs with that, maybe a Decklink card or a Blue Fish. You typically need a decent GPU to run Caspar. But if you don't need SDI video, then you can keep it simple with these smaller form factor machines. You've even got a MacBook Pro with Bootcamp and Ultra Studio doing the output there, so there's definitely options for being portable. So Caspar's been used for arguably the biggest live TV show on earth, Eurovision. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, you either love it or you give it nil pois. You like that joke, didn't you? Didn't like it.
Leave it out, I said.
But it's remarkable, this show pulls in over 200 million viewers every year, so the reliability of Caspar for large professional events is not in doubt really. It's used extensively in Scandinavia at the moment for elections, and it will be used for the Athletics Championship in Berlin. So, this was our first foray into using Casper and BBC Scotland. BBC Albert is off air 17 hours a day, and this is what appears on FreeSat when the shows are off air. From 7 PM until midnight it is on air. It's also on iPlayer, of course, during the day. The system's automated completely. It runs on viewer screens without anybody really driving these graphics at all. It uses BBC APIs and RSS feeds for the required data, news, schedule, weather, and we've got a manual entry screen for trail images and videos that our homepage team add a bank of every few weeks or so. So, Andy, do you want to talk through the interface?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's getting boring now. So very similar stack. This time we've used React and Redux just to keep everything fluid.
Andy's a magpie for these kind of shiny new things.
Going
Thanks for
through
pointing
everything.
that out.
This is the page that just monitors it. The difference here. So we've had live programs. We've had programs that last an hour. Programs that last overnight. This has to run consistently for months and months and months without breaking. 17 hours a day. So a lot of work's gone into, you can see at the top there, making sure that everyone's alerted to the fact that this might have gone down. There's a backup server as well. So there's lots of monitoring in this application to make sure that it can talk to the Casper service, it can talk to all the other services, all the other RSS feeds that are coming in, and make sure that things are working nicely. Now, going back to the point I made about the fact that I had to duplicate previews, the beauty, and we'll come on to this again in a minute, but this view you're seeing here is the exact same template that's sitting inside Casper. So I don't have to do any more work to actually show the people, and it's actually been driven off the live data as well. So looking at that, they're seeing exactly what's going on the TV at the same time, because it's split, it's both coming off the server as it's running. So that is, for me, that's the best thing about the whole thing, is that I can put that view in without having to do anything, and the user will see exactly what's on the TV at that particular point, rather than some sort of crazy mock-up of it. And again, just going through, this is just a simple interface for them to put the trails on, and again, just a kind of upload for video and things like that.
I mean, the folk on the homepage team that deal with this, they love it because they can bank up all these trails for a couple of weeks and they don't need to think about it at Christmas time. They can have a break and have a few mulled wines and etc. Not worry about work. So let's look at the science part. Do you want to deal with that?
So Node has this kind of runner inside it, which is just continuously running these schedules, pulling down different things, checking for different days, checking all the feeds that are coming in. There's the monitoring app, like I said, we just looked at, pulling in trail information from a back-end database, and then again, very much like Viz, talking across a TCP socket to Casper. But this time, that template is written in HTML. So for the first time, we're actually talking to the same technology all the way through this out. There's no difference. Viz is normally programmed in VB script, okay, or a flavour of VB script. Okay, so there wasn't the developer community for that is a very small community, not like the web development community. So this opens up all sorts of possibilities for people that are working on the web now to then come into TV. But I can't remember what I was going to say.
Let's look at that in a bit more detail between Node and the client template itself.
So the TCP socket is coming from Node, and we're just sending these update commands into Casper. This is the way we've decided to do it. Casper can actually talk to any sort of function on the window object inside that template. Okay, I just decided to do it via update and keep it simple. So all update does, a message comes across via a JSON JSON message, and is interpreted by the template inside Caspar. So this is essentially how we're sending all those messages. So everything is driven inside that whole, the weather, the news, everything else is just all done via messaging through this one function inside the template.
Did we go into detail about the actual string that you can see here? This is like layers and channels that Caspar deals with. The first number 1 there's the channel it's on, 20 is the layer that the web template's actually on.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say actually. The if we go back to this, so you can obviously we talked about the layering inside Caspar, so that the HTML template is in one layer on layer 20, but we didn't want to. The video is being played through Caspar on a layer below, so there's a transparent background on the whole thing, and also the whole weather part there gets replaced by these trails. So the ones that are static images are just done within the HTML template, but video that's done is actually done on a layer above, through Caspar as well, and it's just that area is masked out and the video is just played into that area.
Yeah, I mean Caspar is a video server, so we use that to deal with all video rather than using the web page. It's meant to, drive video, so it's best for that to do it natively.
We also wanted to kind of experiment with the different layers and see how they work well together. Because you could see that this is one HTML template, but you could have multiple HTML templates doing different things on different layers.
Yeah, I think Ollie's thoughts on creating Caspar was he liked the way After Effects worked, where you can have layers upon layers of 2D planes, and that's how Caspar works. You've got lots of layers on top of each other. So that is a very complicated Caspar template, and I think if we want to kind of have a bit of a live demo here. This is a typical sport graphic. BBC Sport had a new rebrand just last year, and we had to develop a lot of this stuff in VisRT, but this is a little bit of a demo that we wanted to do of how you could make such a thing in Caspar. So yeah, well this is
client first.
Yeah, let's have a look at that. You're right. Hold on a second. So I've got a Caspar client running here. You can download the Caspar client straight from the CasparCG website. And I'll just start up server. So server starting up here, and it's on screen consumer mode. There's no external like decklink output or anything at the moment. So I'll just put the console down here so you can see what that's doing as well. So this is the client that's going to be sending over these TCP commands over to Caspar. So there we go, we're loading that video on, so that's the background. And here's the template, so I'm going to hit F2 to load that up. And then F6 is an update command, and if you have a look here, in the client we've added in some JSON keys and values here. So that's what we'll set up for the rows, and the type is how we establish what type of command this is. So I'll just hit F6. And then to animate this, we've got an animate type in a state called expand. So if I just hit F6, you'll see the graphic coming on, like so. So there's a lot of CSS trickery in there to get that to come on. The cool thing about Caspar, as I said, you can see the commands that have been getting sent to that. So you can see the update command here, what layer it's speaking to, layer 20, and that's that JSON command that's came through to the template.
You can see just above there as well, any console logs from the JavaScript also get sent through. So animating state expand is something I'm just console logging out to.
So the cool thing about Caspar, it comes with all these mixer effects, so I can hit F2 and fade the background down, I can hit F2 and fade the background up, I can distort the background to the corner of the screen if you want to look like some 80s wedding video. You can reduce the colour gamma there, and we'll put it back to full gamma. We can desaturate that background. So many options. It's pretty much like After Effects in terms of the levels and effects that you've got there, and they're all at the side here on the client. So if I just bring in tools, you can see all these different mix of effects that you can use. So I think on Alba Casper, for bringing in video trails, we probably used a bit of distort and transform to make things go up. And I don't know if you can see here, but there's, if I bring on, let's see, that video, you can have different transitions, so I can cut that on that video, or I can make it mix on from 2 seconds, which is 50 frames. So if I just hit F11 here, I'll take that out and then hit F2, and you can see that fading up over time. So there's lots of different options for manipulating all these different layers in Casper. You can even put, you know, HTML pages straight from the internet, and that's BBC Sport page I'm just putting in as a layer there. If you want to do that, I'll take that out. So there's so much you can do with the Casper client, and it probably gives you some tips on what type of command is needed to do these for any bespoke application that you come up with. So the code, we've tried to make this,
I'll go through it.
simple. Yeah, you want to go for it.
So the thing I like about this is that right up until the point where you have to put the template into Casper, you can do everything as web development. You can do everything with debug tools in your favourite browser, using all those tools, all the debuggers and all the tools you've got available. What we've tried to do here, this is a, well, we're just going to say this is a low cost solution, isn't it, for Anlar, basically, for BBC Alba.
BBC Alba and Inverness. So this is a thing we are actually working on at the moment.
So this is like halfway through development, so this is bones and all, so forgive us. I just wanted to show that it is literally just, you know, as easy as any sort of web development. We've got, let's go back to the client, the server. So essentially, like I said, we're using the update command of Casper, the window.update method to send those messages. So the 2 messages were setup, which basically builds the 2 rows there for Roma and Real Madrid. Celtic 8-2? Ryan's a Celtic fan, by the way, so that's probably why the thing. But so setup builds those rows, and then animate basically does all the animations. And I'll just quickly run you through some of the code. If you're familiar with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, this won't tax you in any way, so sit back and relax. So structure set up with an HTML page. I'm going to use that mouse there because that is terrible. And you can see here, this is just the one place where we're just dynamically adding those rows once we get the data. The data is actually coming from a different system in the BBC that's just sending kind of strings of data. Each match is separated by a hash, and each match is separated by commas. So it's just a sort of serialization form that we just came up with. So that's our structure. You can see there you've got the logo on the left-hand side. You've got the board in the middle. The current version of Casper 2.1, I think, has got a kind of older version of Chromium embedded in it. So you're still using things like prefixes on some of the CSS. You can use things at the moment, things like Flexbox. So I'm not sure exactly what the thing is. The new version 2.2 is actually have Chromium 60 or something, the very latest one. So you can just take away those prefixes and use everything. So yeah, there's our footer and the logo, etc. And just simply pulling in some JavaScript at the bottom. The JavaScript, again, we're just using complete vanilla JS here. I didn't want to pull in anyone's favourite. You know, I don't want to pull in jQuery and have a riot on my hands that, you know, this is like so last century or last year or whatever. So simple things, just taking, getting a reference to some of the things inside the HTML page. Just scroll down to the bottom here. There's my window update function that I was talking about. That's our link through from Casper into our JavaScript. Okay. And the update function takes our input JSON that's coming across. The Casper client there you saw was actually sending it as JSON, a little tick box at the bottom. We're parsing out the JSON and then just looking at the message to see what type it is. So there's a setup which just generates the rows. It does a little bit to actually look at the height of the rows as well and count them up. When the template comes on, it has to be centered depending on how many rows there are, and obviously the board has to come up to the right height with the animations. So just a little bit of maths. Your strong point? No,
Yeah.
No, not a strong point.
Andy used to be a maths teacher, so anybody looks weak next to Andy.
I just start automatically teaching them how to do maths. It's a reflex.
Pythagoras. Yeah. Let's talk about
Just
CSS.
sit down. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I'm adding the rows to the template. Not the most efficient way to do it. Like I said, Casper not having all the most modern features of some of the web stuff, and then just looking at the case where the messages animate, and then just bringing the thing in. What we decided to do was, and as much as we could, to actually just use CSS classes and styles to do all the animations. We're not doing anything with JavaScript. We're not using GreenSock. We're not doing any jQuery animates or anything like that. We're just doing everything with styling, so we can separating those concerns basically. You can see here, like, I'm using WebKit transform because it's, you know, still prefixed. Okay, I mean there's some functions down here to actually kind of create rows and add some classes and things like that. And finally, just standard CSS. You hate using preprocessors, don't you?
Well,
Sass is a dirty word to you, isn't it?
All the build, I just don't like all the build stuff at all.
You find it very difficult as an entry-level person to get into.
Yeah, I
into
think
things.
you just want to get on with it rather than all these build bits.
So you can see here I'm using things like Flexbox to do the containing, and transitions to just transition everything in and out, the heights, etc. So when the where are we there? Oh god, here we go. I'm going to use telly stuff. So what is it? F2 to restart.
What do you want to see?
Yeah, I just want to show the animation coming back in basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So F2, then F6.
So F6 has now built the rows.
So
And you can see the slide in and then the slide up, all done with CSS classes and styles.
Yeah. Now, I mean, this suits flat design at the moment, which is pretty popular. The iOS kind of effect from a few years ago. So BBC Sport have tried to make all their graphics look the same across TV and web, which actually helps us because we can make these things in fairly standard HTML div style shapes. So, but that is the bare bones of how we have went about.
Yeah, I think the important message there is that Albert Casper, you saw with all the things going on, the weather, etc., is essentially just doing the same thing as that. It's just on a bigger scale. There's no more difficult code than that, apart from obviously keeping the thing running for 17 hours a day. The update is exactly the same. The CSS class kind of way I'm doing things is exactly the same. So it's not complicated to get started, let's put it that way.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch on opportunities within Casper. I think we've got some guys here from STV that are quite familiar with Casper. Casper's been used in Scotland by the BBC, STV. They were probably using it well before us, to be honest. And independent producers such as QTV, and as I predicted, Andy, even the Psychic Today are using it. That's a
No, just keep going.
So independent producers QTV, they're using it for things like the Archery World Cup and swimming championships. So it's becoming a bit more popular across the rest of the UK. It's already well established in Scandinavia. You've seen Jonas talking about it. He's working with Superfly TV. They're probably a good model for how you could set up as a consultancy using Caspar and approaching productions. Or the thing is, you could just go and do it on your own. Why do you need all these big TV studios broadcasting like this one? You could narrowcast to niche events and minority sports that are going on straight to the device. You could reach an audience with live video through, you've got Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Vimeo or joining that. So there's plenty of options for live streaming. But what could you do with Caspar there? So say you had an operator to drive graphics on Caspar, or you could have data-driven graphics or visuals. This is something that Super Deluxe are doing, not with Caspar I'd imagine, but it's very similar.
Super Deluxe, your vote affects what happens on screen. What should we put on this sandwich?
Throw some cheese on it.
What should we protest? What should we pierce? What should happen in this telenovela?
So if he's wanting to know, I got my left nipple pierced. It was very painful. Yeah, but Super Deluxe, obviously it's very young and somebody like me's not going to be watching it. But what they do is they have live footage and they layer graphics on top of it, which are driven by the audience. They decide on what way to go for certain dramas. You can see here, this was a freestyle rap battle that happened for 16 hours, and viewers were commenting. They were having to add these comments into their freestyle rap, and people watch this, they love it. It's like 600,000 live views on some of the broadcasts to a really young and attentive audience. So they created live kit software to do this that lets viewers interact with the broadcast beyond Facebook likes and comments. Comments can appear on screen as a graphic providing lyrics, as I said there. But Caspar could do something completely similar and stream it straight to the web. So the web allows us to reach out with our content to a wide audience, and Caspar provides a professional solution to deliver this. HTML graphics and overlays, they are becoming more popular as smart TVs and devices boost their processing powers. Now these are some of the companies that are doing HTML graphics on top of device video. So 60 and Singular Live have already started delivering solutions for viewers to select their own HTML graphics on top of live streams. So what you learn through Caspar could work for this type of thing if you wanted to dive into this type of work. And the future's kind of suggesting that graphics will be rendered closer to the audience on their devices. They can choose what they want. So we've got Craig here from the Glasgow Coding Collective. He's had a bit of a head start on Caspar. He's had a play around, and I think he's got a bit of a demo possibly to even come up and tell us about. So give it up for Craig.
Nice.
Yeah, if you can, yeah. Yeah. Oh, we're going to take a pause for tea and coffee, so anybody wants to go to the back and we'll let Craig get set up. Won't be too long, guys on the internet.
Hi guys and girls. I'm Craig. I've been with the Coda Collective about almost a year.
Yeah.
On and off when I turn up.
Yeah.
I got in touch with Ryan about 2 months ago, month and a half, something like that. Talking to him about CasparCG as a web developer. Call myself a web developer. It offers a lot of possibilities. So the thing Ryan was telling me about was you get live sports, and they have this system set up where they control a scoreboard. So somebody just types in a score, shows up on the scoreboard. But those systems also have a serial port, and they can actually output the data through that serial port too. So I had the idea of, could I use Node.js to capture that data and then output that to Caspar to build these TV graphics. So that's what I've been doing. I don't have an Aries 21 kicking about the house, so instead I'm using an Arduino. Okay. This is a really trivial example, but what I've got is movie quotes. So every 7 seconds, I think it was, it will spit out a new quote. Node.js captures this and then outputs it. I think there's 6 quotes in total. It'll just loop through the list when it gets to the end, go back to the start. And you will recognise the background video if you've ever used Caspar. So, what I've got is I've got a basic Express server I'm using here. This is just a wee command and control app I've built just for this demo. It's nothing terribly fancy, it just plays my template, plays my video, and I can just clear the template layer. I'm using CasparCG connection NPM module to control Caspar from Node.js, and that's what handles my serial port connection as well, so kill 2 birds with 1 stone. This is a script that actually grabs the serial input and then sends it to Caspar. So I'm using the serial port NPM module and Caspar connection. Set up the parser, establish a connection to CasparCG server. I've created get Arduino function because I just wanted a quick way of finding my Arduino. So I've just hard coded the manufacturer, and then it just maps through the list of all the serial ports, finds it, takes the COM name. So then we run the get Arduino function and then pass the call back, brings back the interface, establish a connection, type any new data that comes into the parser, and then if any new data comes in, this is the way down the bottom, this data here, send data to Caspar. That's this function here, and it's very simple. It's using connection.cg update, which is a way of invoking the update function on the Caspar template through this. So you can see here, it's a similar thing to what you showed before. We've got the channel here, the layer. This is the flash layer. You will need that. And then finally we just get the data. It's just a regular JavaScript object. CasparCG connection will just parse it to JSON, and that'll work. So one thing I did want to mention, if you're going to send serial data, make sure you trim it. The trailing character will, or the terminating character will cause a problem, and you'll be sat there until 4 in the morning trying to figure it out. Just remember that. What else? I'll show you the template. Oh, no. I'll show you this. This is the sketch I'm using for the Arduino. Very simple, it's just an array. Sets up the serial port, just loops. When it gets to the end, it goes right back. 7-second delay. Simples. What's it about? Template. Nothing breathtaking. So container. I'm using jQuery. Don't boo. Right? It was 3 in the morning. I just wanted it done. I'm just using it for the animation. It's fine. Serial style. That's just my style sheet. I'll show you that just now. Right, again, it's very basic. And you'll see this inside the template. It is just the same as you would build a website. You get a CSS folder, JS folder, HTML file. Styles. I just add this bit. I kind of like this. Background transparent. Width, 100% view width, view height. Just takes up the whole screen. And then flex. And then it just puts that quote in the centre. And then the quote's just got some styles here. And onto the JavaScript. So simple. So there's my update function, takes in data. Because it comes in as JSON, we'll parse it back at the JavaScript object. Just hide that. Here's my jQuery function, just slides up, swaps the text to the new data, slides back down. This function here, play, I don't really use it for anything, but Caspar will moan and moan unless you put it in. It will work without it though, so don't worry. That's basically it. It's, and like Ryan was saying about the rapid development, I built this last night. So it's not difficult. Is there problems? Yeah, but you know, for a few hours work, that's it. Thanks.
Great stuff. Okay. Well done, Craig. Brilliant stuff. Again, as Craig said, a short time to do something like that. It's pretty cool. Let's just go to GA. So, if we can just... I just wanted to mention about Caspar's roadmap. You can go on GitHub and check what kind of things that they're going to be leading on to in the future. They're doing some different things with the AMCP protocol. They've improved the Photoshop to Caspar graphic process, so you don't have to do everything in HTML or Flash now, you can make them in Photoshop. And they're looking at things like scene building tools, and if they ever got any integration with a gaming engine, I think that could have a big impact in the broadcast industry. So, I think that just leads us on to questions, if anyone's got anything they'd like to ask. Come on, don't be shy, anyone? Ed.
Kick it off. My knowledge of broadcasting and film is kind of basic, but I was just wondering how well this seems to integrate with, I believe, the tools the BBC use in-house for broadcast. Is that, like you mentioned, After Effects, or would that include the Adobe suite like Premiere or Final Cut, Avid?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for graphic designers making motion graphics like myself and my colleagues, we'll use the Adobe Creative Cloud predominantly, After Effects for motion graphics. There is a bit of a tie with Caspar in terms of understanding it because it's layer based, but there is, except for the Photoshop thing that I spoke about, that's probably the only real link there. There's been people that have used Adobe Edge to create Caspar graphics, but obviously that will just spit out an HTML page at the end of that. There's BBC systems that have tied in with Caspar, actual BBC integrated internal systems. Big Ted's one of them that's been developed by guys down in London. and they've been using Caspar in places like Singapore, which was one of the first to do it, and it's kind of catching on now. There's a lot more interest, I'd say, in London, and we're kind of talking with them about how we can get more out of Caspar. The guys in Birmingham have been using it extensively to roll out across the nations and regions, so I think Caspar's got a bright future in the UK. I think that's the reason why I probably wanted to reach out to a lot of the folk here. But yeah, other systems that it might tie in with.
Anything you can
Anything
talk
that can,
across a socket basically can talk to it and send it commands. So
yeah, just like Craig's been demoing there with, you know, tinkery tools like Arduinos and stuff like that. All these things, you see lots of people doing really interesting things with Caspar at the moment, and yeah, that's where we're at.
Is it only you two that developed all these projects that you just showed us?
Well, yeah, in terms of the control applications, me and Andy, yeah. We've got other designers like Matthew just behind you and Jerry as well that have worked on elections. But it's a small team. You know, we try and keep it that way because it's easier to slag each other in the middle of the night and make sure.
No one will work with you, will they? For some reason.
And yeah, that's right. I can't get anybody else to work with me, so we just need to put up with these guys.
But I think that small team and small budgets and small timescales and stuff has kind of led us this way because we need to have a simple solution. You can see what Craig was doing there and what I was showing you, just about the same, you know. And that rapid development with all the web development stuff, you can just get to that end point, that business solution really, as quickly as you know.
Yeah,
as you
I mean,
want.
there's external suppliers that do what we've been doing, and they're good companies like Idonics out there, and a few others that do focus on things like elections. But we kind of felt like if we done our own development, we could take back a bit of the budget to make some progress with things like augmented reality and push different graphic styles, and you know, things like putting live graphics on drone footage to make it look like, you know, there's a big massive exit poll prediction on top of the building and stuff. That's the kind of things that we can do because we've got a bit more budget to get drone pilots out there and film this stuff. So the reason for us developing is to get more money for developing the skills and the graphics that we do here.
I think on the other end of that as well is that you've got projects like the one in Inverness that just there is no budget, there's no one to do it. You know, you go to an external company, they don't want to get involved anyway because it's just too small. So you know, you can just being able to bring. I mean, there's quite a lot of web developers in the BBC that can be brought to bear in this sort of thing.
Yeah, that's it. That was partly the main reason we wanted to do this, is to collaborate really with the rest of the BBC. We've got some really great developers that work on things like BBC News, and recently we've been speaking a bit more with the UX people who deal with things like iPlayer and all these fancy new innovations that they're doing through R&D. So it's exciting to try and be involved with more of that kind of stuff. Sorry, another question here.
So with the BBC getting such great use out of these open source projects, is there any return contribution from the BBC to them?
Yes, we're hoping to. Well, me and Andy are probably the first to try and feed back into into Caspar itself. We've been speaking with Ollie about how we could maybe use what we do with our Node skills, predominantly Andy's Node skills. How could we feed back? There's a part of Caspar that looks at thumbnails for different graphics that are in the system, and that's all dealt with through Node now. So we're looking at trying to help them, but it's a different kind of business model and thought process for a lot of the people within the BBC. They're used to having SLA contracts with a company who they can deal with and speak to if anything goes wrong, and we are trying to say that, well, that doesn't happen with the web community. You know, if something's wrong with React or Angular or any of these frameworks, then you put an issue in GitHub and you flag it up, and it's this more of a community collaboration that happens.
One thing we did put together when we first did the football stuff and the manifestos, we just wanted to put something together that the BBC bosses were happy with us putting out there. We developed a small app called Command Sender that just sends stuff to Viz, but it could easily send stuff. So it was just it was my basic framework of things. This is how so it was essentially all the bits of Node that talk to Viz, and just a kind of get started kit basically, and that's up on GitHub. It's been up there for a while, so it's not very well publicised clearly, but but all the bones of the whole application for all these things are right there. And you use it internally, don't you? Just to send commands to Viz without having to get involved with everything. So it's a bit like, it's a very small version of the kind of Casper client, basically, isn't it?
That's an interesting question though, and it was the first question that Ollie asked us in Oslo. Okay, you're using all these open source things, are you contributing back? And we're like, yes, and we will be contributing
But the first roadblock was...
I felt like I had to ask as a listener.
No, I mean the thing is that Casper's written in C++ and things like that. We don't have any skills in that, so wherever we can help, we will. I mean, promoting it is one of those things as well, obviously.
I think Casper's a public service broadcaster's invention, and the BBC as a public service broadcaster should be contributing something back, and I'm actively trying to get that to happen.
With the community part of it, do you think you would get involved with FTV? Okay.
Cut the feed.
Of course. No, I mean the first thing we done when we knew about what Casper was we went to STV and asked Jim Main what he's been doing with it, and these guys have took that on. We've just been speaking earlier. There is definitely something we should be doing a bit closer. We try and keep in touch with it all, but I think for people starting off, I think the independent market at the moment is probably an easier place to try and get work, because as I said, the narrowcast thing that's happening, minority sports, people have got an interest in swimming. You might not see it on TV, but you might want to watch it somewhere. Somebody's got to do the graphics, and that could be somebody here, and that's what I've been trying to push.
A little bit of an inside baseball question maybe, but what does the production environment look like for the Casper servers within the BBC?
Production environment.
So
they're
what type of servers and stuff are there running there?
I think they're all on Windows servers. I can't remember. What do you mean, hardware-wise?
More, well, for ourselves, we've simply got a couple of Windows 7 machines.
Yeah.
Windows 7 servers that they both run in tandem with a video router, automatically switching when things go wrong. So I'm interested to know how other people do it.
Well, I think it's BBC policy. We for Viz engines we can use Windows 7, but I think because of Casper we decided to use Windows Server. Now that might have been because of the sharing of folders in media that we wanted to use like backup and main. But yeah, if say for example using a Casper for an OB, I think we'd probably just use a Windows 7 because it's not within the CTA technical areas that these things need to be protected. So the hardware we've used is like Decklink, Blackmagic 4K Extreme cards, and an NVIDIA Quadro GPU. So yeah, pretty much. It's not really kept up to date.
Copy and paste that and send it to the people ordering the server.
I think that's what everyone does.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So just a hardware subject there. I take it the camera equipment did that need any specialist hardware lenses to go along with it? I saw the Steadicam for the news election.
Oh yeah, well I mean what you're seeing for augmented reality, yeah, that was on a Steadicam, and we've got tracking units on top of the Steadicam. This is a technology called Red Spy from Stipe. Yeah, so we are the first ones in the UK to debut that, and it was cool. It's really fascinating technology, and we've purchased a box to use for the new channel. So we're hoping to do a bit more with augmented reality in the studio next door that they're building.
Nice. So there's a don't know if it's specifically related to, but is a tracker on the camera?
Well, what happens is with Red Spy is you've got a unit on top of the camera which is like another camera, and you stick these reflective stickers around the building on the roof, or you can roll out a mat with them, or you can put them on the side of a wall, and it's an optical tracking solution. Stipe also do like a mechanical tracking box where you can turn the camera, tilt, pan, zoom, and the tracking comes from where the mechanics are going rather than the optical. So that's how we do AR. It's all quite solid there. If you use the AR kit on an iOS, it's a bit more jumpy, whereas for broadcast it's always been pretty rock solid because of these great tracking solutions that we've got.
Great. No need for green screen or anything. You would need the anchor and the ping pong ball suit.
Yeah. Well, the things are moving so fast that they're potentially saying that green screen might fade away because of depth keying. How far away people are, they could cut out that shape. You can already kind of see it happening with the stuff that they're doing with Magic Leap.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. It's pretty fascinating stuff. We used to be the guys that were always the kind of new innovations, touchscreens before iPads and all this AR stuff, but now it looks like the big tech giants are just beating us now. AR and this Magic Leap stuff looks absolutely fascinating. So we need to try and up our game and think of cool new ways to bedazzle the audience.
Wow. Great. Do you have more questions? None at all? Okay then. Well, I think that's amazing. Thanks so much, guys, for putting this on. This is incredible. It's been really eye-opening to see some of the broadcasts on TV included in the presentation. Being able to put a name to some of the methods that used to create that was brilliant. One of the slides you showed about the back end of one of the sports channels. I was struggling to recognise one of the languages you used there, but then I realised it was Gaelic. I was watching Alba, so that was something I should have realised.
You might have thought it was a spelling mistake, spores, but that's sport and Gaelic.
But yeah, that is wonderful. Yeah, again, thanks so much for this. Just a wee shameless plug here, folks. We are a study group, the Glasgow Coder Collective, and if you're interested in this event and other things that we do and social learning, we'll be meeting regularly weekly on Thursday nights from about 6 to 9 in the library of Alright, 6:30 to 9 roughly. Then it's drop in, drop out, it's fine, in University of Caledonia Library. That's the Saltire Centre, where you can show up and join in, and we've got a Facebook page as well, along with excellent, it's up on the screen, there we go, and you can Google this. We also have a GitHub account for collective projects, but yeah, the only thing left to say is thank you so much, Ryan and Andy, for the presentation. That's brilliant. Yeah. Right. Should have spotted that. No worries. Yeah, it's the Glasgow Coder Collective. Thanks very much for spotting that. And, yeah, just Google us. Google fixes everything. Lovely. We'll be hanging out after this if you have any further questions to any of us or to Craig with our wonderful demo as well. Thanks so much for that. And brilliant. We'll see you afterwards. Brilliant. Thanks for coming.
So I just
Yeah,
before, can I just say